Okay, good evening, guys. So let's start with this session that's about the SET SCT, which was renamed as SET B paper for the BBA and other colleges. In fact, this year, because of the pandemic, the paper was conducted in different format actually. So we had a home based online proctored examination which was conducted. So before we start the session, can you just give me a quick yes in the chat box to confirm whether I'm audible clearly? So just type a yes in the chat box quickly. Guys, need a quick confirmation. If I'm audible to all of you, please type a yes in the chat box. Okay, wonderful. So I've got so many confirmation. So 4:45 the exam got over today. In fact, as I said, because of the pandemic, the exam was conducted in a really different format this year actually. So we had a home proctored online examination today, and this will continue for 4 days actually. So people have booked their slots according to their choices, and some of the students gave the exam today. Some will be writing tomorrow, and there are a few people who will be writing on 28th and 29th actually. So the exam has been staggered over a period of 4 days. So uh, we thought let's do a quick analysis of what happened today, and definitely we'll be coming out with a comprehensive analysis of the paper on 29th evening after all the slots get over. So we'll do a very comprehensive analysis, and then we'll be talking about the cutoffs. So I'll just give you an idea about what happened today actually and what you can expect for the next 3 days. But definitely this session I'm not going to get into the cutoff side of it actually, because there are 3 more days for the examinations which are lined up. So the entire cutoff scenario will emerge when all the slots are over actually. So then we'll get a better picture as to what could be the cutoff. It will largely depend on whether they stick to the same difficulty level, or if they change a difficulty level a little bit in the next 3 days, then what could be the normalization process to bring the difficulties at par for each of these slots actually. So normalization is something which is used when we have paper being conducted on different slots and their difficulty level varies. So they bring at par the difficulty level of each of these slots and accordingly decide the cutoffs actually. So what happened today? In fact, as far as set B paper is concerned, the paper started at 3:30 p.m. and definitely no major issues about the examination today. So it was more or less smooth, conducted in a very smooth format actually. So most of the candidates could log in on time, could start the paper on time and complete their paper on time as well. So I hope the proctored system which their Symbiosis is using has worked well for them actually. So for the next 3 days, I don't expect any glitches, because the first day normally these problems arise and they are taken care of in subsequent days, but nothing happened that sort of today actually. So everything was fine. So let's get into the section wise analysis or the feedback to understand what exactly happened today. So was the paper on the expected lines, or was it different actually? So we have to look at from that perspective. So let's quickly understand what happened today, in fact. So if I look at today, the paper was restructured a little bit considering the new format of the examination. So if I look at the previous year's pattern, the number of and compare it with the new pattern, the number of questions were reduced this year, and overall from 150 they brought down the number of questions to 75, and accordingly 75 minutes was given for the MCQ section. Today, the paper included both the MCQ section as well as writing ability test. So once the candidate had submitted the MCQ section, their VAT section started actually, which was for about 30 minutes. So proportionately, if I look at each of these sections as compared to the previous years, the numbers of questions were brought down in each of these sections. approximately by half of it actually. So 50% questions were there, and accordingly 75 minutes was given. And as we all know, symbiosis exam does not have any negative marking. So I'm sure every candidate who attempted the paper or who plans or who has a slot for the subsequent days will take this into consideration, that you are allowed to do intelligent guessing in the paper. There is no second thought about it. So there is no question which should be left blank actually. So you should definitely, at the end of the examination, you should definitely try your guess and definitely mark the answers. There is no negative marking, so there's no risk involved. Who knows, you might get those added extra points uh, which could help in your selection process, which could help you clear the cutoffs actually. So overall, 75 minutes MCQ section. And if I were to look at each of these sections separately, English was very much on the expected lines. It was very much on the expected lines. So there was just one passage which was followed with 6 questions, and rest of the 14 questions were from grammar based or vocabulary based actually. So we had questions based on antonyms, we had questions based on synonyms, and quite a number of questions were actually from spotting the error in the given sentences actually. So you guys are definitely familiar with all such kind of questions. The exam was delayed quite a bit this year. It was supposed to happen in the month of May. Because of the current situation, the exam got delayed by almost 3 months, almost 2 months actually, I would say more than 2 months. So everybody got ample time to practice actually. So there were a lot of time available to practice. I'm sure nothing was left to chance. Nothing was there which you are unfamiliar with actually. So more or less, if I compare it with the previous years exams of SCT, the paper was on the expected line. So we had a passage accordingly, just one passage as compared to 2 passages earlier. So we had one passage following 6 questions, and we had good number of questions coming from grammar and vocabulary. Most students I interacted with, they felt the overall section was quite easy to attempt actually, and they attempted almost every question actually. But given the constraints in which the exam was happening, see, most of us may feel that home proctored is an easy examination, but that's not exactly the case. There's a lot of pressure out there on the minds of the candidate. So overall, I would say an attempt of 15-16 can be considered really good for this particular section. The overall difficulty level was no doubt very easy. The passage was not so long, so required not much of an effort. Direct questions out there from the passage. It's more of the contextual based actually. So overall, an easy section, 15-16 attempts out of 20 questions was easily possible. So that is the best attempt by a candidate I'm talking about, who is fully prepared. But definitely one was expected to mark all the 20 questions by doing some intelligent guessing for those 2-3 questions being left actually. So easy section, English was there actually. Moving on, if I look at the other areas, which includes quantitative aptitude or mathematics, again, very much similar to previous years, a large number of questions coming from the area of arithmetic. So we had questions based on profit loss, we had questions based on simple interest, compound interest, time, speed and distance, time and work. In fact, there was a single question on number system, and there were 3 questions based on data interpretation. In fact, again, just like English, most number of students actually found this section to be quite easy. Mathematics is something which quite a number of people actually fear about, but this section in the symbiosis paper has always been easy kind of actually. And if I look at the cutoffs of the previous years, that is evident from that as well. So cutoffs for symbiosis has always been on the slightly higher side actually, because the paper has been easy all the time and there has been no negative marking. So this year was nothing different. Most of the questions as expected were from the area of arithmetic. Few questions on a single question on number system, and there were 3 data interpretation question actually. So overall, an easy section for most of the students. I'm sure you would have worked really for that actually. So you would have gone through, practice the mathematics based for the mathematics based section, and attempt of 14-15, considering the fact that people still fear about mathematics, but given the difficulty level of the section, I believe 14 to 15 questions were still possible to be attempted in today's paper. So this will largely be reflected in the next 3 days as well. I'm sure the level of difficulty will remain the same. So there is nothing to fear about as far as this section is concerned. All you have to give your best efforts, read every question, nothing to be missed out. Most of the time we actually miss out a question because of that fear element which we have developed over a period of time. But as far as symbiosis paper is concerned, guys, the paper is largely very easy. So those, especially for those students who will be attending tomorrow, day after, and we have been telling this, the strategy sessions or whatever sessions we got an opportunity to interact with you, we have been always telling you guys that in symbiosis there's nothing to worry about. The paper is going to be really easy, and that cutoff is something which is definitely going to be on the higher side. But that is something which will depend on the overall performance of all the students across the 4 slots in the given 4 days actually. Moving on, general awareness. Yes, this is something which worried most of the candidates because there was this section was quite different from their expectations. Mostly people, given the trend of most of the examination these days, they focus more on current affairs, but there were static GK questions in the paper as well. In fact, the ratio is more or less similar, almost 60%, 50 to 60% of the questions were from static GK area actually. Even the current affairs, the so-called current affairs questions, quite a number of questions were from the beginning of 2019 actually. So that was a surprise element. So quite contrary to what we expect when we talk about current affairs. Current affairs generally is referred to past 12, 13 months, but yes, they went a little ahead and actually covered questions from the starting months of 2019 actually. There were questions based on awards related to history, like there was a question based on waterfalls. So all such questions were there, questions based on geography kind of. So this section, considering the difficulty level and the feedback of the students, I would say an attempt of 13-14 was still possible because people definitely worked for it. So they definitely knew about the data. For someone who might not be familiar, that might be an issue, but those who prepared well for the examination, I'm sure an attempt of 13-14 was still manageable. So overall, the papers seem to be quite easy. The last of the section was analytical and logical reasoning, wherein most of the questions which came were from analytical reasoning. So we had a question on circular arrangement. Today, there were questions based on sequence and series, calendars, directions based questions actually. One of the surprise elements was uh, no questions based on syllogisms actually. From the critical reasoning part, we had questions based on course of actions. So out of the 15 question, a good possible attempt was roughly around 10 to 12. So that is, I would say that one could easily have managed to do around 10 to 12 questions. So if I look at the overall paper, the MCQ part of the paper, not a very difficult paper, except as far as GK section is concerned, which troubled people a little bit considering the static GK part, but more or less the paper was quite easier. So on the own, one could have definitely attempted somewhere around 60 to 65 questions. Obviously, the remaining 10 questions, one would have definitely made some guesses actually. So a possible attempt, if I look at, is somewhere around close to 60, 62. A good effort, I would say, a good number of attempts, I would say, in this particular paper. Now, what will be the final selection process? That is one important question which I've been getting actually. See, what will happen, because the VAT was integrated into the paper itself, does not mean that VAT will be evaluated for every student. The next stage of the selection process this year involves personal interview. Unlike what used to happen till 2019, VAT and PI used to be the second stage. So they were clubbed together, and when you got call from the campuses, you are required to go to the respective campuses and write the and complete the essay writing exercise and appear for the interview. But because of the pandemic situation, they integrated the VAT section along with the MCQ paper. But VAT section or the essay writing section will be evaluated only for those students who would clear the cutoffs, which the set authorities will decide basis the 4 days, the difficulty levels, the number of students who have appeared, and the number of students being called for each of the respective institutions. They will decide, each of the respective institutions will decide what would be the possible cutoff. And those who clear the cutoff, only their VAT section will be evaluated. So it will not be evaluated for every student. The VAT section will be evaluated only for students who have cleared the cutoffs. And then those students who have been shortlisted will be appearing for a personal interview, so which will be conducted in an online format, online face-to-face format. So expect results to be coming out in the first week of August, and probably around second week of August, the personal interview stage would be conducted. Normally, 50% weightage has been assigned to the MCQ part, the set paper. 20% weightage is assigned to the writing ability test exercise, and 30% weightage is assigned to the personal interview. So this is a very comprehensive process of selection by this Symbiosis Center for Management Studies, whether I'm talking about the campuses at Pune, Noida, or Nagpur. So they go for a very comprehensive selection process actually. So your scores into VAT will be considered if you have been shortlisted, and your performance in the personal interview will also be considered for the final selection process. And as I told, the VAT exercise will carry 20% weightage, and personal interview will carry 30% weightage if they don't make any changes for the particular year. Today, the VAT exercise has a single topic, which was about, is social media good or bad? I believe one could not have expected such an easy topic coming their way actually. So this is something which I'm sure you must have prepared, because as a part of the essay exercise, this is one common topic actually which we frequently come across, isn't it? We debate a lot about the impact of the social media on one's life. So that is what you had to write today actually. The time limit given was 30 minutes. There was no word limit provided, but given the time frame, it is expected that you should be writing somewhere around in 300 words or maximum of 350 words actually, because you also need some time to jot down your thoughts, bring your thoughts in one place, and then express that actually. So for those who are not familiar with the writing ability test process, I would encourage you to go and check your video section in your aspiration account. And we did a session some time back. So if you could not attend it live, please check the video. You'll get a fair idea as to what this exercise is all about and how you can write one of the best essays actually. So what is expected out of the VAT exercise and how one is supposed to complete this exercise. So overall, if I look at the, if I have to summarize the paper was quite easier, no doubt about that. So except for the GK part where some bit of struggle was there given the questions from the static GK, which most of the people worry about. So that was there, quite a number of questions there. So that definitely brought down the number of attempts in the GK section. But overall, an attempt of 62 questions was definitely possible. And as I said, there is no negative marking. So one is expected to attempt all 75 questions. So don't leave any question, even if you don't know the answer. Do some intelligent guessing. I know you people are smart, so you can do that. So please do attempt all the questions. This is my advice for the students who will be appearing subsequently in the next 3 days. So nothing is to be left behind. We have been talking for a long time actually. So we have, in every strategy session, we have been telling you, whenever there is no negative marking, the best way is to mark every question, mark every answer which you believe could be a possible answer for that particular question. Why not take the chances actually, isn't it? So overall, a very simple paper. Let's wait for the next 3 days. On 29th evening, we'll do a comprehensive analysis for the 4 days, and then we'll give you a clear picture as to what could be the possible cutoffs for the BBA program for each of the respective institutions. So we'll give you a fair idea. We'll be interacting with the students. We'll be taking the feedbacks. We'll be connecting with them over the course of next 3 days as well. And on 29th, when the paper finally gets over at 4:45 p.m., around 6:37 p.m., we'll do a once again live analysis of the a very comprehensive analysis of the paper for the last 4 days actually, including today's actually. And that will help us come to understand what could be the cutoff for this year for all the three Symbiosis Center for Management Studies, Pune, Noida, and Nagpur. So that was an overall summary of the paper today. I would welcome questions from you all. If you have any question, except for the cheating part, I'm sure a lot of you are worried about, given the nature of the examination, you are thinking that many students might have cheated, or you believe that they might be cheating when they'll be writing the exam tomorrow or day after. See, guys, you need to understand, you should not be worried about as to what others would be doing. See, if somebody wants to use unfair means, that's not going to help. You need to understand it this way. You have a limited time given to appear for the examination to complete the exercise. So if you start looking out for resources, because you can't predict the question, isn't it? If you start looking out for the resources, that will take it fair share of time. And then what will happen? You'll not be able to complete the entire paper. First thing first. Secondly, uh, I don't think students would be able to do that, because the camera has to be open all the time actually, and they are definitely have put a check in place. And in fact, I know for instances where students today were warned in between the paper actually, so they are taking a good look. Whatever technology they have developed, they are definitely taking a good look at the candidates actually. Rough work is allowed. You can keep a rough sheet with you, and a pen with you, so you can do rough work on that paper actually. So if you want to, rough work is clearly allowed. So don't worry about as to people are using unfair means or not. Please pay attention to your paper, give your paper, give your best shot out there actually, without worrying about as to what others are doing actually. So that would be my advice. uh, questions if you have related to the examination. No cutoffs, please. I gave you an idea about the attempts, but obviously, as I said, my advice would be to go for attempting all the questions. Take your chances. Even if you don't know the answer, at the end of the paper, do ensure that you are marking answers for every question. Actually, take your chances. Don't worry about whether it's going to be right or wrong, because there's no negative marking involved. Can we get questions of today's paper? No. Symbiosis never releases its question paper. Actually, they used to do it earlier in 2009-10, but since 2011, Symbiosis has actually never been giving the paper actually. So it's mostly memory based actually. So it will take some time to come out actually, but you can't get the paper for today at least actually. Okay, somebody wants me to go back to the previous slide actually about quantitative aptitude. So I'll go back here. So arithmetic dominated this section, in fact. So nothing to worry about, more or less on the expected lines. There was nothing different actually. So can we expect difficult questions for 29th? No, don't expect any difference in the difficulty level. Of course, the questions would be different. They are not going to have the same question for all the 4 days. The question, but the overall difficulty level would be same as happened today actually, and they will be consistent for the period of next 4 days. If at all difficulty level changes, there is a process known as normalization. There is a process known as normalization, wherein they use the formula and normalize each of the slots and then accordingly come out with the cutoffs. So that's very important to understand. For those who are worried about as to what I should be doing right now for my exam tomorrow or maybe day after, I would say please be calm. It's not time to worry about. You can't cover a lot of ground if you have not done early. But I know for sure that you have already done a good job. You have prepared sincerely. All of you have done your job. So it's best that you keep yourself calm and give the examination as per your respective slot. Nothing to worry about. So this time, if you start worrying about, then you'll be definitely affecting your performance. That's very, very important for you to understand. When will CL give us the symbiosis paper? So if you're asking about the mocks are there. But if you're asking about the actual paper never come out. Symbiosis never releases the actual paper actually. Tell me about IP entrance date, not announced. The last date to apply is still there. 31st July is the last date to apply. So don't expect anything happening before last week of August or probably till September. No extra time will be provided. Once 75 minutes gets over, your paper has to be submitted. Remember, guys, it is very important. The paper is being conducted on a TCS interface. It is very important that you click on save button. If you don't click, once you have marked the answer, if you don't click save and next, then possibly the answer may not be recorded. That's very important for you to understand. No, you cannot submit before the 75 minutes gets over. You have to be there for the entire 75 minutes, and only after that, the VAT section will start, which will be for 30 minutes. The overall paper is about 105 minutes, out of which VAT is about 30 minutes at the end. At the end only. Prior to that, you have 75 minutes for the. Prior to that, you have 75 minutes for the MCQ section. Gaurav, I believe you'll definitely get a month or so, because 31st July being the last date for the IP form submission, they'll take at least a minimum of 20 days. Even if they announce a date, that should be probably around last week of August, not before that actually. So Kushagra, it would be difficult considering Mumbai campus. It should be difficult. So same question coming again. So did any people asking each other, did anybody try to cheat actually? So I don't understand why you should be even worried about that actually what others are doing. So it's best that you give your best shot, isn't it? So you should not be worried. And I'm sure no one is cheating out there. So if you keep ourselves worried about that others might be cheating and I should be indulging in unfair means, probably you'll be definitely affecting your performance in the paper actually. So please be careful. Don't worry about what others would be doing. As I said, go and give your best shot for the paper. See, the merit list for each of the institution will be drawn depending on the number of applications. So generally what happens after the first merit list announced, not everybody takes the admission because there are other options which people evaluate. Some of the students will go to the IIM, some of the students will take admissions into Delhi University, some may prefer Narsi Monji. So depending on that, vacancies are created. So generally in Symbiosis, in all the institutions, generally a second and a third list definitely comes out. So no, we'll be doing a comprehensive analysis on 29th evening now. We'll be doing a comprehensive final analysis on 29th evening. Difficulty level will change in different slot. I don't think so. The difficulty level will remain same for each of these slots. That's my expectations. See, the paper has completely changed. The number of questions have been reduced. So I think it's better we not worry about last year cutoffs. But just to give you an idea, last year cutoff for Pune campus was 96 out of 150. Abhinav, the Rohtak analysis we did is already available. You can check on the website. The entire analysis of the paper was done. It is already available on the website. So we are worried because some undeserving will be getting the admission while deserving would be abashed. No, nothing of that sort will be happening. See, you need to understand that is why there are checks and balances in place. So they are not selecting students merely on the basis of the multiple choice questions paper. There is a process in place. You have to appear. If you are shortlisted, you have to appear for personal interview as well. And that carries 30% weight in the final selection process. So that's very important actually. That's very important. See, the pattern as far as overall structure of the paper is not going to change. So we'll have 20 in each of the section other than analytical and logical reasoning, where there will be 50 questions. Of course, the number of questions from each of the topics could vary. So if today we had five, let's say 5 questions on series, tomorrow we may have only 2 questions on series. There could be possibly other areas from where questions can come. They could add clock-based questions. But overall, you need to understand the difficulty level will not change. That will remain intact. That will remain intact. And that's what my expectation is. Abhinav, I'm not going to talk about cutoffs today because that would be not fair. So let's wait for the next 3 days. On 29th, when we come out with the comprehensive analysis, we'll be definitely talking about the cutoffs. Yes, rough sheet usage is allowed. You can keep your white sheets along with you, along with the pen, nothing extra out there. In fact, when you'll be starting with the test, you'll have to first move the camera into your room to show them that nobody is there other than you. Apart from you, nobody is there inside the room. And they are taking care of that because students were given warning today actually. So they are monitoring the entire process. So if they feel that you are probably looking here and there or you are doing something else, then they'll definitely warn you. And then after certain warnings, your test can be closed as well. When do you think Rohtak is going to be announced? I'm sure you are talking about the results. Expect that to be coming around in first week of August. Yes, the camera is always on all throughout the exam period. The camera is always on. Gaurav will do a separate IP exam strategy when the dates will be announced. Just like we did it for SAT and IPM Rohtak, we did it for NPAT, we'll do it for IP University exam as well once the dates are announced. See, it depends on the campus you are comparing with, whether to talk about Narsimonji or Symbiosis. It completely depends on the campus and your own interest, actually. So both are comparatively good institutions, no doubt about that. In fact, you'll hardly get points to differentiate between the two. Being in Mumbai definitely has its own advantages, but definitely when you are getting the main campus, that would be my recommendation. Symbiosis has its own mock test. They already gave the mock test that was basically to adapt to help you adapt to the system, the interface of the paper actually. So they don't give you a mock test as such in particular, but that was more about. So they have already run the do the dry runs earlier. So in the last week, now the actual papers have started actually. Avantika, we did the analysis for SLAT at 4:30 p.m. So again, we'll be doing that day after tomorrow when the paper gets over. The SLAT is being conducted over a period of 3 days only. So we'll be doing the analysis of SLAT paper on 28th evening. Okay, guys, I think the questions are really getting repetitive. So just do join us on 29th evening. We'll be doing the analysis, a very comprehensive analysis. And that is the way we'll be releasing the cutoffs, the probable cutoffs we'll be talking about based on the feedback over the period of 4 days. We'll be definitely talking about the cutoffs. So see you on 29th evening. I hope all of you join once again, and then we'll be talking about the cutoff, and then we'll be doing a very comprehensive analysis. We'll be talking to the students each day, getting the feedback, and we'll come out with a very comprehensive analysis along with the possible cutoffs for each of the Symbiosis constituent colleges. So that will give you an idea, and then definitely you can start working upon your personal interview stage. Thank you so much. Have a wonderful evening.